What are subtle red flags at a job interview that say working here would suck? I came in for a job interview at 7:30 p.m. The entire staff was still in the office. Should have known right then that 9 to 5 was not ever going to happen. One day I worked until 2:30 a.m. to finish up a big project, and my boss said to me I could come in an hour later the next morning. Gee, thanks bro, with my public transport/travel time that gives me a solid 2 hours of sleep instead of just the one. Edit, with all the stories and the reactions on this post, I just wanted to say that there really are good employers out there. Do not stand by being treated so poorly, because you deserve to be treated with respect. For any employers reading this thread, here's a few examples of how to create a loyal, healthy employee base. My current employer puts family first. If there is an emergency at home, they tell you to handle that first. For example, when I was miscarrying, they told me I don't want to see you in the next 2 weeks at least. Take your time and give me a call when you feel ready to come back in, okay? 9 to 5 means 9 to 5. If you have to leave early for something or come in later BC of something, they expect you to take your own responsibility, and don't even check if you actually catch up the lost time, they just expect that you do. By doing so you create that on the rare occasion that you do have to stay late to finish something, you do that without complaining, because it only happens incidentally and not structurally, and certainly isn't expected. In fact, they ask if you really have to stay late or if you just think you have to stay late. If you both give and take, you're much more likely to give back. They frequently and genuinely ask about your well-being. And then also follow that up. If you tell them your mother is unwell, they ask about her a week later. It's not lost in the abyss that is business. No, you feel seen and heard. You look stressed. Is there anything I can do? Do you want to go over your to-do list together and prioritize what needs done first? Things like this mean the world. One time they walked in and said, "Hey, my afternoon meeting got cancelled. I know you have like 15 files that need checking and I've seen how full your calendar is. Why don't you give me 4 and I'll make sure they get sent out today," to lighten your load a little. They focus on little tokens of appreciation. A chocolate Easter bunny waiting on your desk at Easter. Last year they hid 10 Easter eggs in every room. I found one hidden in the box of my crackers, ha ha ha. They make sure your salary is paid before Christmas even though you normally don't get paid before the 26th. They make sure every secretary gets flowers on Secretary Day. They bought us weird pens, think bright neon color with dangly beads on top, just because they thought it would brighten up our days. Like, it only costs a penny, but it makes your staff feel seen. When there's a heat wave, they treat us with popsicles. When it's holiday season, they randomly decide to close the office at noon on December 31st if we have to earn it in the last couple of hours of this day we're doing something wrong. So let's shut down for the day. Have a good one, guys. They do not tolerate gossip. We talk with each other, not about each other. They hire capable staff. People who are not putting in the work/effort do not last. They will ask us about people's progress, like what do you think about the new receptionist? And we can answer frankly, even if our opinion is that they're not making enough progress, etc. They want to know what we think and they value our input. This creates a healthy work environment, with driven people who all have heart for the cause. Mistakes are human, and we solve them together without smack talking about the person responsible. Of course we all have our bad days and it's okay to mope and murmur here and there to your roommate, but we really try to keep that to an absolute minimum. Next story. We don't like clockwatchers here. We expect everyone to be committed. Expecting more work for no extra pay. Getting mad at you when you leave at 5 even though your stated work hours end at 5. Next story. Everyone looks tired, also you don't see anyone in your department before working in it other than the boss. Made this mistake a few times, was the worst jobs. Next story. Employees are either new hires or have been there for 15 plus years with no in between. There is no room for improvement, it's better to leave for advancement. Next story. When you are signing all the forms they give you and you are taking your time to read over every document so that you can fully understand what you are getting into, when people come in and start telling you that you don't need to read this and that just sign here and so on. Next story. Had an online interview with a company a few years ago. Was interviewed by the regional manager, seemed like a normal interview. Halfway through, he let slip that there were 6 other people from his company watching and listening in, but the software was set up so I could not see or hear them. And he actually got a kick out of telling me this. It was like being on a first date with someone, and finding out later she had a hidden camera on her and her parents and 6 other family members were watching the whole time. I'm like, yeah. No. F that noise. Next story. I was once told sometimes the hourly workers go on strike and they lock us in to keep the production line running, but management brings us steaks and we have an informal agreement with the union so you can cross the picket lines once a week to visit your wife. Next story. I interviewed for an independent contractor position on a piece rate. It's hard to predict how much you're going to earn on a piece rate, so to attract me the manager showed me some pay stubs from his guys. I noticed that he could easily cherry pick pay stubs to show his best guys' best weeks. All that tells me is that I'm likely to make less than what he's showing me, at least on average. The pay stubs were obviously designed to be confusing. They were a full page and absolutely covered in data. He wanted me to be impressed by a dollar amount, obviously not accounting for costs which the contractor has to carry or taxes which the contractor has to deduct and pay, but he took them away before anyone could have deciphered what the pay period, piece rate, number of jobs or kilometers was. He showed me other people pay stubs. What the F? Another red flag is that they were desperate to hire, because they didn't have enough contractors to deliver the work contracts they'd already sold. I had 2 guys from different offices call me after I declined the position who apparently still thought I was considering it. Next story. When they tell you what I'm paying you stays between you and me, don't discuss pay with anyone else usually means they are trying to pay you less than your coworkers who do the same job and don't want you to know. Next story. At my last place of work, the person interviewing me had a printed cartoon on their wall of someone who looked like a bomb had blown up in their face, with the caption "I spoke with boss name about it. I guess we're still doing it." That wasn't subtle at all, but I ignored it. The boss was an absolute tyrant who wouldn't listen to her staff, consider changing her mind about anything, or let people do the work they were best suited to do. She wouldn't show up for weeks at a time. The job itself was decent, but she was the worst boss I've ever had. Next story. I was once part of a group onboarding for an IT job. They handed us all the one-page new hire contract and everyone except me signed immediately. When I read the paperwork, I discovered we were signing a mystery document. Clauses included I agree to abide by the personal search and seizure security policy, attached. Without other pages, there was no way to determine what I was agreeing to. I kept requesting more and more pages until the HR drone said okay, I guess, me, is just determined to hold everyone up. We will handle you separately if you're struggling so much. After I walked out and drove home, I called the hiring manager to apologize for not taking the job. He informed me that HR reported I had walked out after refusing to be drug tested. Next story. Jobs where the expectations of the position aren't clear. The person hiring you should be able to give a clear idea of your responsibilities or day-to-day in a practical way. It shows that the company understands what it wants out of the position. I've worked a couple positions that had a really hard time figuring out who was supposed to do what that lead to a lot of confusion, and both of them had this in the interviews. If the company you're working for can't define what success in that position looks like, you won't be able to either. Next story. We work hard and we play hard. Translation: you will work 60+ hours a week. You will be expected to work late nights and early mornings. People will treat this job like their whole life. We'll also underpay you. It may look like a decent salary, but when you back it out to hourly, it's not even remotely competitive with industry standard. But we have kegs and a ping pong table. Also, if everyone that interviews you has been there less than 2 years, it's a sign that they can't retain good employees.